Joining us this week on the National Sports Report is Purdue head coach Darell Hazell.
Coach, we go to jump right into it. And one of the first things, because you know, and we tried to have you on before, I want to say it was almost a year ago. We had some technical difficulties, but we've advanced since then. And thank you so much for taking your time to come back on our show. So we'll just jump right into it. You know, we deal with a lot of youth and high school players, and I know you see this going around the nation. A lot of these young kids, age 12, 11, 13, are getting scholarship offers. Can you explain, being a man in that position to give those out, can you explain what that means, what that process is? What does it really mean to receive an offer in the 7th grade?
It's getting crazier and crazier each year. All these early offers from major institutions to junior high kids and even freshmen, sophomores. You don't even get a chance to really evaluate the character of young men and young women as they go through their sports. We see, a guy or a girl do something special on a basketball court or a football field, and all of a sudden it's an arms race to get that person involved and interested in your university, and it's getting out of hand. And you know what, the day of the media and the internet and all the Facebook and all these things have really driven this process. And now parents are behind it, and they want their kid offered early and often. And it's not good enough to let them go through the process and develop as young people and do well in school and all the things that you look for in young people. It's all about the offer now, and that's unfortunate. That's the direction we're heading. I don't think it's going to change.
You are listening to the National Sports Report on the NSR Sports Network. Visit us at nsrfootball.com.
And I mean, when you look at it like that, it's really getting close to some of the things that we saw with AAU basketball and some of those type of things. I think football, in my opinion, is still difficult, to get all the way that way, because there's just so many moving parts, and it takes more than just one player to build or to create a great team. In basketball, one player can change your whole outlook. But in football, it truly takes a team. So what do you think is going to, or what do you think some of the effects on the actual athlete when he receives an offer and he's only in the 7th grade? Do you think that could possibly have a negative effect on his growth, or is it just the way things are going?
Well, I think it's the individual and how he's handled with his parents and his guardians and whoever's in charge of that person at that age. I mean, if you're humble, and you can't help the fact that someone offers you, but if you're humble and you handle it the right way, your growth will be good. If you're not, and you're arrogant, and you don't work to continue to build your craft and make yourself as good as you can be, because at our level, at the Division I level, you're dealing with a lot of elite athletes. And what we see a lot is kids coming to our place, and that first year it's an eye-opener for them, because they're all the best in their schools and prospective areas. But when they get to our level, they're like, oh, whoa, and they look around, and there's so many great athletes that they are playing with and playing against that they are just another guy. There's very few very elite athletes at our level, very few. So I think it's all how the parents handle it and how the kid handles it.
Absolutely, well said. And we'll take it back to your journey. When did you fall in love with football? Did you play youth football? Tell us about your maturation through the game of football.
Yeah, I started playing football in the Police Athletic League, the PAL League, and had a lot of great mentors coming through the ranks. I really did, and I was very fortunate to have some good coaches, because a lot of things happen now where if you have a bad coach early in your career, you may not pursue that sport, and that's a shame. But I was very fortunate to have some good young coaches, and they helped me develop, and they were very positive. We were very safe in what the things we did in preparing for for football games and things like that. Then I went on and played in high school and played in college, and then went into the coaching profession 31 years ago. It goes fast. It really does, and you move up the ranks, and you do. One of the things that I try to tell a lot of young coaches that are getting into the profession, and it's crazy now, they're all worried about their next job. That's the main thing. Where's my next job coming from? And consequently, they don't do a good job at the job they're in. And you'll never get that next job if you don't do a good job. So I try to just to share some of that information with some of those young coaches that are getting into the profession, that do the best job that's where you are, and whatever's supposed to happen will happen for you.
You are listening to Purdue head coach Darell Hazell on the National Sports Report on the NSR Sports Network.
That's actually great advice. That's actually great advice right there. And I believe we had Joe DiFilippo on one of our podcasts, and he said the exact same thing that you just said. Be great at the job that you're in. Don't worry about the next job, because if you don't do good in this job, like you just said, there won't be a next job. And speaking of going through jobs and talk about that role, and we want to talk a little bit about the road as an African-American, being one of the very few African-American coaches and head coaches in NCAA football. Talk about the responsibility or whatever word you want to put on it that you feel as being one of those guys that is carrying that torch.
Yeah, I do have a responsibility. I waited a long time. I waited 25 years for my shot, and like I said, it wasn't something that I was looking for every day, but when it came, I believe I was ready because I was around some good head coaches, and I took those meticulous notes of how to and how not to do things when I was going to get in my program. Now I have an obligation to help others along, and I always try. We have 4 African Americans on my staff out of 9 of the assistant coaches. I'm always trying to mentor those guys and help those guys get ahead in the profession, just in case they do. A lot of them don't want to. Some of them do want to. But I want to make sure they're equipped when it is their chance to have an opportunity to interview or to have an opportunity to sit in the corner office, that they're ready, because the opportunities are few. So you better be ready so you have a chance to stay in that corner office.
Coach Hazell, this is Coach Josh. I have a quick question. For a youth guy like myself or a high school coach, how did you go about getting into the college ranks and becoming a coach in the college ranks?
Well, there's a couple different ways to break into the college profession. It's hard because the field is flooded. And then, like, for example, I looked at over 40 applications today. I have 2 positions open for one's a director of ops position / special teams. And I looked over 40 applications today trying to figure out who I'm going to hire. But there's a couple different ways. You can come in as a graduate assistant and work your way up that way and try to earn your respect. Or you can start at a smaller level, Division 2 or 3 level, and work your way up that way. But a lot of the things is making sure you get around people, the good contacts that really know about the profession, and don't spin your wheels and talk to people that may not be able to. I shouldn't say don't talk to them, but make sure you talk to the right people that can help you in this profession.
You are listening to the National Sports Report on the NSR Sports Network. Visit us at nsrfootball.com.
Coach, when you're on the recruiting trail, what are you looking for in a Purdue Boilermaker? What are you looking for? What are the qualities of a kid that you walk up to him outside of just the tape and the other things that we can see? What are some of the things that we can't see that you as the head coach are looking for when you're recruiting athletes?
There's 3 things. There's 3 criteria to become a Purdue Boilermaker. 1, you got to have impeccable character. It is hard. I don't care where you were at. I mean, I spent 7 years at Ohio State as an assistant head coach and coached the receivers there, and it's hard to win football games. I don't care where you are. It is hard to win football games, and I don't care who you're playing. You're all trying to do the same thing. So you have to have guys in your locker room with impeccable character, so you're not playing against yourself. When your locker room is split or guys that have their own agendas, it's hard. It's really hard. So you want to find those guys that are going to do things right when you're not around them. The second thing is you have to have guys in your program that want to flourish academically. If you're always constantly chasing guys to get to class, and that takes away from your preparation time to get ready to be a better football program. And then the third thing, you have to have guys that can help you win championships at this level, and that means they got to be great players. So those are the three qualities and characteristics that we look for when we're recruiting a young man.
What's your position on satellite camps? We see a lot of this, and there's been a lot made of it, and you got Jim Harbaugh making music videos. He's killing it right now. What is your position on satellite camps?
Well, I think there is some good in them. I think there needs to be regulation. I think, some universities were doing excess of 20 satellite camps, and that's hard on the assistant coaches. I think there needs to be a regulation of how many you can do off of your campus, and then I also think there needs to be a cost regulation on how much a young man has to pay to come to those satellite camps. There's a lot of good that comes out of those. There's identification of guys that could not get to your campus, and that's a good thing because some people don't have the means to travel to your campus. So if you can take your camp on the road, it'll help young men and young women to get ahead. But again, I think there needs to be some regulations as we talk about satellite camps.
I would agree with that. I'm inclined to agree with that. And we all definitely here at the National Sports Report, we're definitely in favor of them for the reason that you said. But I also agree that there needs to be, just like in anything else, there needs to be some sort of regulation so that it's not the wild, wild west out there, and that guys are staying compliant. And we don't want to use this as another loophole for guys to cheat. So that's definitely the stance that we take here with the National Sports Report. A lot of kids, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area, because of those scholarships or because of those satellite camps, they get looked at, whereas, they might not have. So we definitely believe that it's a good thing. Now, Coach, you've been coaching for a long time. You said 31 years. How are you looking at is the NFL in your future? Is that something that you want to do? I'm talking about as a head coach. Is that something that you aspire to do, or is this where you are is where you want to be?
Once again, I'm completely and ecstatic about the job that I have. I love our football team. I love our staff, and I can't wait to get this season rolling to show what the Purdue Boilermakers are all about. I've had opportunities in the past to join the NFL ranks, but that's not what I wanted to do at the time. And like I said, I'm so looking forward to this year. I can't wait to kick the ball off here in a couple weeks.
Coach, this is Coach Preston, baby Coach P. One of the things that we know about coaching is that it's not the typical 9-to-5 job. What advice would you give to some of those young coaches out there that struggle with how to balance being the great coach that they want to be, but also making sure that they do what they need to do at home when it comes to family and wife and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great point because there's a lot of commitment in this profession. And if you don't have it, both sides of your life are going to suffer. And you must know what you're getting into before you get into it, and so must the people that are in your loved ones must know it as well. But I think the way we balance it here and some of the other places that I've been is you involve your family with your job. So anytime you can get your family around the players and your coaching staff, I think it makes it a little bit easier for both parties. But there's a time period from August until December where it's limited time at home. You leave in the dark and you come home in the dark. And if you have young kids, that's hard sometimes during the season. But, there's so many good trade-offs. So, I look at my son who's 15 right now. He's been to seven BCS bowl trips and the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and all those Fiesta Bowl 3 or 4 times. You don't get that in a normal 9-to-5 job. So there's trade-offs, and some good, some bad, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
You are listening to Purdue head coach Darell Hazell on the National Sports Report on the NSR Sports Network.
I think that was well said, and you know, the part, especially the part about where the people, your family, they have to understand what they're getting into, or like you said, it's just not going to work. I mean, it's really about a communication, and I think I see a lot of families, especially with coaches, a lot of coaches that we deal with, and it's not just from college, but youth on up. Sometimes that pressure, and we all know this, all of us are coaches out here. To be great, you got to put the time in, and you have to really, really focus on it. And this will be our last question for you. I mean, I could talk football with you all day, but lastly, before we let you go, any words of advice, especially for the young guys, and we deal with a lot of young coaches, youth coaches, and particularly in the youth game, Coach, a lot of these guys feel like they know everything. That one piece of advice that you can give those guys to if they really are serious about being a great coach, what would that be?
Well, here's a couple things. And we're in a different day and age, and everything's on video. So you got to be really careful, because if you put a bad mark on your name, it's hard to get off. And just really be cognizant of how you conduct yourself, whether it's behind closed doors or outside of closed doors. It doesn't matter. Be who you are. Be a good person first. Reach out, and it doesn't matter if it's someone who can or can't do anything for you. Treat them the same. Treat them with respect, and go out of your way to try to help other people. And then get out and really study the craft. You're right. There's so many young coaches. This is almost comical. There's so many young coaches that I'll talk to, and they've coached for 2 or 3 years, and now all of a sudden, how do I get to be coordinator? They're worried about being the coordinator. They've coached for 2 or 3 years, and there's guys that have done it for 15 and 20 years, and they're still not ready to be the coordinator. But a lot of times young coaches are impatient now, and they want what you have. I interview some guys, and I say, okay, what's your goals? He goes, I want to be sitting in your seat. I want to be sitting in your seat in 5 years or 10 years. I'm like thinking to myself, please put in the time and earn your respect, earn your stripes, and then we'll see where it goes. But I just think they have to be patient. I think they got to be hard workers. Find a niche that you're a little bit different than that next guy. I think that's critically important. You better be, because there's so many applications out there and so many applicants out there. You better find your niche, whatever that might be. Make it a little bit different so that you stand out when it comes to those 3 or 4 names that come across that the powers to be to make that hire. So whatever that niche might be, find it.
And that was well said. And, Coach, thank you again for coming on the show. We definitely were blessed in hearing you, and we got to have you back on. Now that you've been on the show, Coach, you family now, so you can go in the refrigerator. You don't have to ask. You can sit in the big chair. You can even use the remote, Coach, and turn the TV. You family now, so thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Well, appreciate you including me into the family, and great to hear from you guys. And again, thanks to Sandra for introducing me tonight, and best of luck to you guys. Keep an eye on the Boilermakers now.
Listen every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, to the National Sports Report on the NSR Sports Network. Download the podcast now at nsrfootball.com.